believe that there are some keys to getting prayers answered in the Spirit. I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you are tired of prayers being unanswered, you need to pay attention to what I'm preaching to you tonight, because I'm going to give you something that gives you a key on how to get prayers answered from God. There was a very powerful prophet that lived back in the 50s and 60s, died way too young. His name was Verbal Bean. He was a very powerful man of God. He was a man of prayer. He was a powerful man of prayer. He said there were two types of prayers that God answers. He said there are two types of praying that will get God's attention. He said the first type of prayer that God answers is a memorial prayer. It's something that you pray about over and over and over, and then God answers it. He said, like Cornelius, when he prayed so many times that the angel of the Lord said, your prayer and your giving has come up as a memorial before God. He said it was like this. He said if a man wanted to buy a suit but could not afford the suit, he would go into the suit store with the money he had and put the suit on layaway with the funds that he had. Next time he got paid, he would put some more funds down on the suit. He would not leave with the suit. He would leave without the suit each time he went in to make a payment. But the more payments he made on the suit, when he could make them, there would become a day when he would finally pay off the suit. And when the last payment was made, he could take what he had been paying for home with him. He said that's how it is in your prayer life. You can be praying about something over and over and over and not take the answer home. If you keep praying and you keep believing, there's going to come a day when you bring the answer home with you because you've paid it in full. Hallelujah.
On your standing, and I'm going to make a few comments before I get into the heart of my message, but I'll go ahead and read. This is the story of Daniel being thrown into the den of lions. The king comes the next morning, fearing the worst, but wondering exactly what happened. In Daniel chapter 6 and verse 20, we read, Daniel 6:20. And when he, that's the king, when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, in whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? He asked the question I think the world is asking the church. Is your God able? And I'm preaching the answer tonight. God is able. God is able. You may be seated. Before I get, and so my text tonight, the story of Daniel, you probably know, but as a young man, Daniel was a Hebrew, a Jewish man. He was taken into captivity. His home country was destroyed, and here he was, a stranger, a captive in the land of Babylon, and later the land was conquered and became the Persian Empire. And so he was at every disadvantage, but God's favor was upon him. And God blessed him. Even his enemies understood that he had a lot of ability. And so they decided to groom him for leadership, he and some of his friends. Of course, they had their own worldly plan of how it would be done. But Daniel said, wait a minute, I'm a Jew, I'm committed to God. Our God has required of us certain things as part of our commitment to our God. We do not eat certain food. We have certain guidelines that separate us from everybody else, that identify who we are, the people who worship the one true God, Jehovah. And we will not compromise that. He said, if you'll put me to the test, you'll see that by eating our own diet, we'll be more blessed than if we followed your plan. And sure enough, it was so. And Daniel, as a young man, rose to a high position in a pagan government in the country of Babylon. An amazing story. I just want to pause right here to say, we can have influence in our community. We can have influence in our society. The church needs to be known in your town, in your city. Pastor, you need to meet the civic leaders, the political leaders, the business leaders. You need to meet the influence makers in the community. Your Your church needs to get involved in some ways. Of course, evangelism is always our priority. But we can find ways to serve the community. We can help with Habitat for Humanity, or help with the homeless, or teach English as a second language, or job skills, or divorce recovery class, or grief recovery. There's so many things we can offer our community that we can serve the community, and in turn we can have an influence. You could be part of the Right to Life movement. There's so many things that we could do. And we need people in every sphere of society, every job category, every career. We need construction workers who are in the church. We need electricians who are in the church. We need bankers in the church, lawyers and doctors and school teachers and government officials, whomever we can convert or whoever we can influence. We should not be intimidated. We should seek to influence our society. But in doing so, we do not and must not compromise our identity. You don't have to compromise who you are as an apostolic believer to have influence in your society. You can stand for Jesus' name. You can stand for the Holy Ghost. You can be a worshiper in your local church, an exuberant worshiper. You can be a tongue talker. You can live a life of holiness, both inwardly and outwardly, and people will respect you. If you're not a hypocrite, if you're not harsh and hateful or legalistic, but you simply love God and you love people and you practice what you preach and you have a right spirit, you can have an influence on your job, at your school, in your society, in your community, and you don't have to compromise God's will. You may be challenged, but God will help you in time of challenge. We see an example right here in the story of Daniel. Now, by this time, Daniel is an old man. It's now the Persian Empire. He's been a notable and trusted official for many years. But over the years, there have been many enemies who were jealous of him, resented him, and no doubt resented the fact that he did not serve all of their gods. So they tracked him to find out what they could accuse him of. They thought, no doubt, this man is too good to be true. He acts like he's religious and holy, but we're sure he's doing something. He's got to be bending the rules for his friends. He's got to be skimming off money somewhere, taking kickbacks and bribes. He's got to be doing something. Once we find out, we'll nail him. But the only thing they could prove on him is that he consistently served God. Amen. It's like the old saying goes, if they arrested you for being a Christian and put you on trial, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Would your friends and co-workers say, I never would have thought that. I never would have dreamed he's guilty of that. Or would they say, yeah, that sounds like her. That's her all right. And so they decided, if we're going to accuse him, it's got to be something to do with his religion. So they went to the king with a plan. Of course, they didn't tell the king their true purpose. But they used flattery to convince him. And they said, oh, king, you're so magnificent, you're so wonderful, you do everything that we need. And so please make a law that for the next 30 days, no one will ask a petition of any man or even of any god. And if they do, they'll be punished. They'll be killed. And so the king gladly issued the decree, not having any idea what the true purpose was. When Daniel heard the decree, then outlawed prayer for 30 days. What do you think he did? He did the same thing as he always did. He didn't go protest in the streets. He didn't yell and scream. He didn't get on Facebook and other social media and call slurs, evil slurs against the people, the judgment of God on them. He just did his normal routine. At the time that he normally prayed, he just prayed. He did not try to hide it. So he wasn't trying to be antagonistic. He wasn't in your face. But neither was he going to deny who he was. Amen. So I don't think we have to parade in Walmart and start speaking in tongues at the top of our lungs just to prove that we have liberty in the Holy Ghost. But neither should we feel intimidated when visitors come and sit down. We don't have to stop worshiping. We shouldn't have a fleshly display, but we should let the Lord have His way. When it's time to worship, we ought to worship. When it's time to jump and dance, we ought to jump and dance. When it's time to talk in tongues, we ought to talk in tongues. We're not going to win the world by an impressive program. We're going to win the world by the power of God. Yes, we want listeners to be attractive. We want nice music. We want a good choir. We want good preaching. We want a good website. But basically, we're not trying to compete with every other church on that level. We're not trying to say we have the best program, so switch churches and come to our church. We have the best choir, so quit your church and join our church. No, what we're saying is when you come here, we may or may not have the best choir. We will certainly do our best and we will sing from our heart. But what's different about our choir and our preaching, you will feel the presence of God. Your life will be changed. You will be healed. You will be delivered. You will be set free. You will receive the Holy Ghost. That's what we're depending on. Not an attraction, but a conversion. Praise God. I remember when I was a pastor some years ago, a lady was raised Pentecostal, and she was going to one of these independent Pentecostal churches that they said they were oneness and Pentecostal. They're trying to reach other people. It was time to pray. At the close, she came down the front. Began speaking in tongues. The pastor went over and said, "Wait a minute. You can't do that in church. There are a lot of people here that don't understand. They'll be offended. So you just have to keep your speaking in tongues at home. Don't do it in church." Then she woke up and realized, wait a minute. Right. If I raise my kids in this environment, they will never know what true worship is. They will never know what intercessory prayer is. They will never know what people are about is. I got to get on this, and I got to find a church where I can worship God in spirit and in truth. And she's in that church in Austin today. So Daniel prayed. Now it would have been very easy to explain why he didn't need to pray for 30 days. He could have said, "Now God, you've invested a whole lot in getting me in this position. I know you don't want to lose your investment now. So you will understand if for 30 days you don't hear from me. I won't backslide. Just if I don't come from church for 30 days, I'll be okay. If I skip a few services now and then, I'm all right. I'm not going to backslide just because of that." He could have said that. Or he could have said, "Now God, you can read my mind. So you'll understand if I just give you silent prayers. I'm not going to kneel. I'm not going to open the window. I'm not going to speak out. But when you see me walking by, you can notice that I'm sending a thought your way. If that's all I do for the next 30 days, surely you'll understand. If my worship is quieter than usual, if my prayer is subdued, after all, I'm trying to walk carefully in society, so you'll understand if I don't make a scene for 30 days. He could have excused himself, but he didn't. He was simply going to be who he was. And I challenge us as Pentecostals, as apostolic, worship like we're Pentecostal, pray like we're Pentecostal. I'm not talking about being hateful or obnoxious. I'm just talking about being who God has called us to be. I'm just talking about letting the Lord have His way. I'm just talking about going ahead and not being intimidated by the enemy, but just be apostolic, unashamedly, unapologetically apostolic. That's who I am, because that's who God called me to be, and that's what the Word of God teaches. Oh, hallelujah. Praise God. Praise God. And so, Daniel was arrested. He was brought before the king. The king said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. You and I can't rescind the decree." And if you read the story, it's obvious the king was very ashamed and sad. He knew it was his fault, so he tried to brush it off, and he tried to excuse it. He tried to make him feel good, but it really wasn't faith. He was just trying to cheer him up. He said, "Don't worry, your God will deliver you." It wasn't a statement of faith, because in the text I read, when the trial really came, the king was already weeping and lamenting before he even found out what was going on. It was what I call a positive confession. You know, there's some people, there's some churches that build their whole church on positive thinking, positive confession. And you can read about it. They've got thousands of people coming to church. They seem to be wildly successful. And because they preach, basically, God wants you to be happy, God wants you to be blessed, God wants you to be successful. And if you think positively, act positively, pray positively, you will have a wonderful, blessed life. That sounds good for middle-class Americans who have good jobs. It's easy to believe that. And I do believe God wants to bless us. But sometimes His blessings are not primarily monetary. And sometimes we go through trials, and not all believers are rich, and not all believers have everything they would want in this life. So you can't judge spirituality by those things. But what troubles me even more in those churches is always a positive message, which is good as far as it goes. I do believe if you have a positive attitude toward life, you'll accomplish more than if you have a negative attitude toward life. So what they say is good as far as it goes. But where is the message of repentance from sin? Where is the message of consecration? Where is the message of holiness? Where is the message of sacrifice? Where is the message of deny yourself, take up the cross, and follow me? There's a lot deeper message than just have a positive attitude. There's some situations, I don't care how positive your attitude is, you run into a brick wall and you can't go through it. The devil attacks you and you don't have the power to overcome it. You need a lot more than a positive attitude and a positive confession. You need faith in Almighty God. You need the power of the Holy Ghost. You need a miracle. Hallelujah. So the king had a positive attitude, but he didn't have power with God. So when Daniel was thrown into the den of lions, here comes the king, the next week. Oh, Daniel. Is it hope against hope? Is it possible that your God delivered me? Is your God able? And when I read this and studied this, I felt like this is the cry of the world today. In our world, we used to be the Bible Belt. But today, large numbers of people don't even know if there is a God. And if there is a God, they don't know if He really cares for them. And they don't know if He has power to do anything about it. Even the Bible Belt people, a lot of them believe in miracles in the Bible. And they believe there's going to be a miracle in the last day of the resurrection, but they don't believe in miracles today. God's got the miracles all throughout time except for our time. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's what Bible believers, fundamentalists, that's what they believe. And so the cry, when we start preaching, you can be forgiven of sins, no matter what kind of sin. When you can be set free. You can be transformed. You can be delivered from alcohol and drugs. Yes. Your family can be restored. Yes. People say, is that possible? Yes. Is your God really able? Yes. And we have all this struggle over sexuality right now. And we've got to be careful. We've got to be wise in this generation. Amen. Amen. We must stand for truth, no question. Amen. We know that God's plan for marriage is one man, one woman can make a commitment for all. Amen. We know that sexual relationships outside of that marriage are contrary to God's will. They're sin. So the church must always be clear about that. But we don't have to be hateful. We don't have to be mean. And we don't have to fight people. Amen. They might fight us, but we don't have to fight them. Because when you see a society opening up to these sins, it does show the decline of society. Amen. But when you see an individual in these sins, it doesn't mean that person is any worse than any other person. It just means probably in their childhood, in their background, in their family, there's severe dysfunction. And if you knew some of those stories, you would perhaps understand why they fell for that sin instead of another sin. I don't want to be too graphic, but I think I could say. You read about the story of this teenage girl that was, 25 guys went into the high school restroom and had their way with her. And my initial thought was, how horrible. And what kind of girl would allow that? And then I read the follow-up story that she was an immigrant who had been trafficked as a child. And then you realize her world is so distorted. She doesn't understand what love is. She doesn't know what relationships are. She doesn't know what family it is. It doesn't excuse sin, but it helps you to reach out instead of condemnation, saying, we hate that person. She should be judged. She should be executed. No, we say, what a lost soul. What a wounded soul. Oh my God, are there people in our society that are so broken and so wounded? And the world says there's no hope for people like that. The world says if you're trapped in the same-sex attraction, there's no hope for you. You just be proud about it and just live it out. But what would you do? I was preaching at church not long ago, and the pastor said, see that lady over there? She's crying, speaking in tongues. See that other lady over there? She's crying, speaking in tongues. He said when they came to church, they were married to each other. And they both received the Holy Ghost. In the process of time, they broke that relationship. And then they started wearing clothing appropriate to their sex. They're still a work in progress, but they have distanced, they have broken that physical relationship. They're now dressing like the Bible teaches. They still have a ways to go. But what if somebody would have met them at the door and say, no, your kind of person doesn't belong in the church. There's a soul. I look at the church as a hospital. Where should sick people go? They should go to the hospital. Where should sinners go? They should go to the church. I preach in another church. It's one of the former Dogwalks in Texas. And this young man was worshiping God. I think he was playing a guitar or something. And the pastor said, after church, see that young man? I said, yeah. He said, how's he looking? He says, it's great. He's worshiping God. He's a good young man. He said, well, when he came here, he had decided he was supposed to be a woman. He was dressing as a woman. He was taking all the hormones. He was shaped like a woman, looked like a woman, talked like a woman, acted like a woman. The very last thing was to have the irreversible surgery to become a woman. That's when he came to church. That's when God got a hold of his life. That's when he was filled with the Holy Ghost. And after that, God began to convict him. And he started changing back. He stopped the hormones. He started dressing like a man. The pastor said, we're still working on it. He's still got a ways to go. He's still got to learn the mannerisms a little bit more effectively. But God has definitely done a miraculous work in his life. I was in another church not long ago. It's my home church. The pastor leaned over, and I knew some of the folks. He says, I just counted there's 7 people in church, right in this room, who are living for God, who used to be involved in a same-sex relationship. 7 people. One was a prominent activist in the city, belligerent and radical. Nobody knew she had a Pentecostal background. But God got a hold of her heart. She found herself back in a Pentecostal church. Now, I'm deliberately using what might be some shocking examples. But notice the point. The world says it's too good to be true. You can't be delivered from alcohol. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. If you're in a same-sex relationship, you could never change that. And if you did, you'd just be lying to yourself. Once you're in that life, you can never get out. What doesn't make sense to me is you can live heterosexually all these years and you decide to switch, and that's celebration, that's pride, that's possible, that's wonderful. But if you do the other way, oh no, that's impossible, that can't be done. If you're a man for 50 years and decide to be a woman, oh, that's wonderful, that's great. You can say, I'm a man, I'm planning to stay a man. Something's wrong with you. Or I made a mistake and I want to take that back. Something's wrong. That's how crazy our society is. But I'm trying to make a point on purpose. When we preach a gospel without compromise, we've got to preach it in love and wisdom and language people can receive instead of it turning them off. We've got to keep them long enough they can understand, and more importantly, not just understanding the words, but feeling the Spirit of God and feeling the love of people. And so the world, it begins to crumble because they thought, oh, these Christians are haters. These Christians reject me. And we treat them as world people. We talk to them, we appreciate them, we thank them for coming, we pray for them. And then what starts happening in their mind? Is it really possible? Could I be living from drugs? Could I be living fornication, life fornication? You know, that's a sin too. Don't just single out one sin. Pretty much our whole society is involved in sexual immorality in one way or the other. Most of our converts, one way or the other. We need to understand that people are coming saying, you know, you can deny sin and you can rid the society that says that sin is not sin anymore. But here's one thing you can't change. You can't change the consequences. You can convince yourself it's not sin, but when you do it, it still has consequences. It's like the law of gravity. We can vote to repeal the law of gravity. But when you walk off the cliff, the consequences are just the same as if there was a law of gravity. So the Supreme Court can change the definition of marriage all they want, but it doesn't change the reality of broken lives, broken heart, wounded spirit, separation from God, eternal judgment. And so people are convinced, well, I'm not a sinner, but yet my life is messed up. What's going on? And we say, God is the answer. What the Word of God diagnoses your problem, and the Word of God will give you a solution. The church will pray for you. You can be delivered. You can be forgiven. You can be set free from guilt and condemnation. You can have a good life. Whatever God takes away from you, He'll replace it with something better. You can do God's will. And they say, it is God. And the message of the church, I hope you understand my heartbeat tonight. We must teach doctrine. We must teach holiness. We must teach morality. Our young people need to have detailed teaching on why we believe what we believe. So I don't advocate any form of compromise. But the overriding message to the world has to be this: God is able. God is able. He's a healing God. He's a saving God. He's a forgiving God. He's a delivering God. He's a God who makes a way when there is no way. He's a God who will bring you through. He's a God who will bring you out. He's a God who will bring you up. He's a God who can do what no one else can do. For nothing is impossible with God. Yes, God is able. God is able. God is able. Oh, hallelujah. Let's praise the Lord right now. And I'm preaching the whole missionaries. When the devil says you can't, God says you can. When the devil says no way, God says yes, there is a way. When the devil says you fail, God says you will succeed. When you fall down, just get back up and keep going on, because God is able. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So the king called out to them, are you really there? Are you still alive? Was your God able? And Daniel says, O king, live forever. My God has delivered me. O king, you're worried about whether I'm alive. Don't worry about me. I'm in God's hands. I'll be whatever God wants me to be. I'm kind of worried about you. I'm praying for you. Oh, king, live forever. You're the one who could die of a heart attack without God. I'm okay. You can have lines in or out of lines in. You're the one I'm worried about. And when they took Daniel out, the Bible specifically says he was not hurt in any way. Now, I'm just imagining if I was thrown to them once, I'm just imagining a big wall, a rock wall. And I'm imagining I'm running to the opposite as fast as I can. I try to scramble up that wall. I find a toehold. I find some kind of place to dangle. I find a handhold. I scramble. And let's say I just get out of reach. And the lions lunge. And maybe one of them's able to scratch me. One of them's able to hit me, but they can't pull me down. And there I'm hanging on, bleeding. I'm half dead. I'm exhausted all night long, barely surviving, hungry, thirsty, about ready to die, but somehow I survive till morning comes and somebody takes me out. I would say that's a great victory. But the way God wants to deliver you is even better than that. He doesn't just want you to be a conqueror. He wants you to be more than a conqueror. He doesn't want you to be your average old conqueror. He wants you to be a super conqueror. His plan for you is yes and amen. His plan for you is restoration. His plan for you is healing. His plan for you is renewal. It's not survival. It's revival. Hallelujah. Oh, I'm speaking to somebody here tonight. Don't live beneath the privileges. Don't sell God short. God will deliver you, heal you, and restore you. Is it really possible? Yes, God is able. When Daniel's 3 friends, the young Hebrew men, were thrown in the furnace of fire, they were bound by ropes thrown in the fire. When they were delivered out of the fire, their ropes were burnt off. But the Bible specifically says their hair was not singed, their clothing was not scorched, and there was no smell of smoke. They were 100% delivered and restored. The only thing that was restored was their knowledge. That's what God wants to do. I know the size of this group, and in your churches, there are people who've been abused as children. There are people who've been abused in marriages. There are people who've been abused by the circumstances of life that they had no control over. There are others who've been wounded by bad choices they made themselves. But it is not God's will for you to live the rest of your life as an emotional and spiritual cripple. Whether it's something others did to you or something you did to yourself, you do not have to live as a victim for the rest of your life. You do not have to live distorted and twisted, depressed, and discouraged, and downtrodden, and oppressed for the rest of your life. That is not the will of God. God is able to give you a miracle. Notice there was no smell of smoke. You couldn't even tell they'd been in the fire. Now, I pastored enough years to know there's some people that they've been hurt by their spouse, their ex-spouse. Some have been hurt by preachers or by people in church. And they're talking about it 10 years later, and the feelings are just as raw. They still have a grudge. They still have bitterness. They still resentful. They still can't trust authority. They still can't trust the man. And they had just cause. I'm not disputing the fact that they were mistreated. But I'm saying they can never get over it. And you're not around them very long. You can smell the smoke. But there are other people. And sometimes we criticize them in our news. There's one lady back there in Austin, back almost any time there's a good worship service, she's going to be dancing, rejoicing. And every time I love that. I don't know if anybody criticizes her or if they do. I have no use for that. You know why? When this woman came to God, she was addicted to cocaine. She was a mother whose her whole life was being destroyed. She came 3 times and relapsed 3 times, or 2 times. But that last time, she was completely delivered, and she's a model saint for many years. A model Sunday school teacher. She's delivered from addiction to cocaine. She can rejoice all she wants to rejoice. There's another one in the church. The Spirit really moves every once in a while. He'll just take off and run down the aisle. He'll just run around the building. Somebody probably thinks that's fanatic. That's going too far. But wait a minute, I remember the time he was stricken with cancer, had chemotherapy, knocked on his immune system. He had an infection. He had a stroke. He was in the hospital. He was in a coma. Then he had a heart attack. They jumped him back to life. But they called in the family and they called in me. And they said he only has a 10% chance of making it this night. And if he does make it, he'll probably be some kind of physical or mental cripple, maybe a vegetable. So we advise, he's going to probably have a heart attack in the next few minutes. We just want you to sign the papers, do not resuscitate. So that way, the next time he has a heart attack, he's gone. The family said, okay. But I went to the church, it was Wednesday night. I said, this could be the time for our brother to go. It could be God's time to take him. We don't know. But we're supposed to pray for healing. That's what the church says. And we leave it in the hands of God, and we should have faith for our brother. I said, look at the opportunity. The doctor looked me in the eye and told me personally, there's only a 10% chance he'll survive this night. Well, if he survives this night, I'm going to go back to the doctor and say, you know, there's a 10% chance it just happened naturally. Which means it's a 90% chance God did a miracle. So which way do you want to pray? I said, let's pray for a miracle that will confound the doctor. Sure enough, the man survived the night, woke up, came out of the coma, came out of the hospital, went back to work. 15 years later, he's still working, still praising God. He's got a right to shout. He's got a right to worship. When you look at him, you never know he went through the valley of the shadow of death. All you see is the glory of God, because he doesn't even have the smell of smoke. You look at somebody tonight, they're all just sitting high, they're sunny death, and think, they've never had any problems. They've never lived in the real world. They have a happy face all the time. No, you don't know. They may have gone through a horrible divorce, fear, spouse, everything. But what you should know is God is able to take away the sin of us.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Talking to somebody today. God is able.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Oh, I feel the Holy Ghost here.
Thank you, Jesus.
I'm going to close with this, Ephesians 3:20.
Yes.
The Apostle Paul's in prison. You'd think he'd be a little bit frustrated and discouraged. He's an apostolic preacher. Can't even effectively have a ministry. But he writes, now unto him is able. But here's something. He feels the urgency. He's like a Pentecostal preacher. He starts getting annoyed. I imagine him walking back and forth. He's dictating to a scribe, but he can't just sit there. He starts getting excited. He starts pacing back in that cell. The anointing begins to fall, and now he's looking for words. He's a Rashid Collins. He's going to start with machine gun words, one after another. Boom, 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 boom. So notice what he does. Now unto him is able to do. I need an action word. Not just that he can do it. I want you to know he does it. Now, him is able to do, but I can't just say he does it. Lots of people do stuff. He does exceeding. That's how God. Now to him is able to do exceeding. But you know, it's not exceeding like you think about. It's not exceeding like the creek's running over. It's not exceeding like the bathtub's running over. It's exceeding abundantly. When God does something, he exceeds himself. He exceeds abundantly. But that's not enough. He's more than exceeding. He's more than abundant. What else can I say? He's exceeding abundantly above. Take it up higher. Take it to the next notch. He's higher. Whatever you're thinking, he's above that. Whatever you're going, he's at the next level. Out of him, the same, the new, exceeding abundantly above. But that's still not it. That still doesn't cover the thought. That's still not big enough for God. What else can I say? What other word is left in the vocabulary? I've used them all. What else can I say? Now to him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all. That's pretty comprehensive. That's pretty real close to territory. That pretty well explains everything I couldn't explain. Above all, you ask or think. Have you ever noticed you go to God in prayer with your shopping list? Number one, God, if you'll give me a raise, I can take care of my financial goals. Number two, God, if you'll straighten out my wife, then we'll have a good marriage. Number 3, if you'll work over my kids, we'll have a good home life. Number 4, if you'll talk to the pastor about how we will have a good church life. So boom, 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 boom. God, you just do all these things, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Other times, we're so mixed up. We're so messed up. We're so in deep of trouble. We say, God, I don't even know what the answer is. I don't even know what to tell you to do. But that's okay. God's got that covered. He's got it all figured out. Even when you can't tell him what to do, he's already got it figured out. Because he can do exceeding abundantly above all that you can ask or think. In other words, sometimes God blows your mind. And I haven't got to the good part of this yet. According to the power that works in us. The supernatural power. It said, in the middle of nothing, let there be light. And suddenly, in total darkness, light burst forth. In chaos, order came to be. There was nothing, and suddenly there was something. That power is working in your life. If you're battling with darkness, you've got the power that can say, let there be light. If there's chaos in your life, you've got a God who says, I can straighten it out. The power is in you. Let's stand together. God is God is God is What does the Lord want to do in your life tonight? What does the Lord want to do in your ministry tonight? I'm not saying you won't have trials. In fact, I'm saying you will have trials. And I'm not saying everything will be easy. I'm not saying you'll understand everything. I'm not saying you'll always get an instant answer to every situation. But I am saying this. Whatever you're facing, whatever you're going through, whatever you need, God is able to deliver you. God has a plan for you. God has a plan for your church. God has a plan for your youth. God has a plan for your family. I want you to trust God. I want you to believe God. I want you to move forward in Him. Oh, God is able. God is able. Oh, let somebody feel it right now. If you need the Holy Ghost, why don't you come down here? If you need healing, why don't you come? If you need a renewing in the Holy Ghost, why don't you come right now? If you need direction for your life, if you need a breakthrough in your church, if you need a miracle, why don't you come? God is able. God is able. God is able all across the building. Let's open our hearts to God in prayer.
Second type of prayer is a current prayer. He said a current prayer is the second type of prayer that God answers. It's a situation that you don't have a long time for God to do this. You need God to do it now. Does that make sense? Yeah, you can have a lost loved one. That's a memorial thing. You just pray until God does something. But you could have a situation where you need God to intervene now. And when you have that type of prayer, memorial prayer is not what you need. You can't just go bring the name up or bring the situation up in passing and say, God, I'm making another payment on this. I need you to come through. When the situation is desperate, it requires desperation in your prayers. A current prayer, you can't come with a situation, Brother Grant, that's tragic and real and severe and come to God and give God you know, Lord, what we're going through right now, and I need you to come through because the deadline is this week and we have an answer, we need some peace, we need a miracle, and walk out. There's no desperation there. You're giving God the right facts, but you're not giving God the heart behind the facts. You're showing God, I'm really not serious about this. Because a current prayer requires desperation. It requires you to be, I need an answer now. I don't have 60 years to pray about this. We need a miracle in our house. That is desperation. That's a current prayer. And a current prayer, God will hear. And I want to show you something, that the Lord answers prayers while you're praying them. I know that we've got God in this box that if I pray today, He can come through by Thursday, or He can come through by tomorrow, He can come through by next month. But actually God, the Bible said, I can hear you before you even say what you're going to say. In fact, Jesus, I know what you're saying before you even ask.